Howdy, folks. Today we're talking about creative storytelling and how you can improve your work to tell engaging and captivating stories with today's special guest right after this. Welcome to Camera Shake, where we bring you the insider scoop on all things photography and videography, giving you a unique opportunity to stay ahead of the curve. As always, I'm your host, Kirsten Lutz, and before we get started, I've got one thing to ask of you. Over 65% of our viewers on YouTube and listeners on audio are not actually subscribed to this channel. Come on, folks, let's change that. Just hit that subscribe button. It helps us get amazing guests like today's on the show. It's just one click. That's all it takes. Thank you so much. Now, without further ado, let's welcome today's special guest, the multi-award winning filmmaker, cinematic storytelling expert, and advertising cinematographer and director, Schu. Christian, man, how's it going?
Kirsten, thank you so much for this very, very nice introduction. Nice to be on your show.
Well, thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show. It's a really interesting subject, visual and creative storytelling, because I feel it's one of the things that, especially in photography as well as in video stroke filmmaking, is very often forgotten about.
100% agreed. But it's in every aspect of whatever we see. If we find some picture nice, some photography nice, or some video nice, some commercial nice, some film nice, it's about the storytelling. Because without storytelling, there is just maybe a nice picture, but the storytelling is what makes it special and what appeals to our heart and soul.
Yeah, it's this thing where I feel like, especially in a photography world, and likewise, of course, in the world of video, very often the technical aspects seem to take over, where people are more interested in, what aperture are we using, what lens, focal length are we using, and so on.
Yes.
And actually, I always feel it's sort of topsy-turvy, and it's kind of the wrong way around.
And I fully agree with this, especially as I'm used to work with people who have been, unlike me, into film schools and learned that from the peak, from the start until their peak. They are too technical. They are too much focused on, what should we use, an anamorph lens or a focal length, or what kind of, how much focus do we need here? Is it a blurry background? All right, all nice. But all of this it should be used to help tell the story and not be a part of the story. That's what I believe. It's and these days it's all about like you mentioned it, technical details and should we focus on this more or that more, instead of just going with the flow and doing the best to tell a good story. And for telling a good story, you don't even need that much fancy stuff. You need you can tell a good story with basic equipment. Of course, you need a few things, but at the end, it's the most basic equipment that will help you to tell a good story if your story is good.
And you're absolutely right, because we have to remember that decades ago, when technology wasn't anywhere like where it is now, people were able to tell great stories. Movies were fantastic. Just take Star Wars as an example. And
Absolutely.
Obviously, technology had moved on to a certain extent by the mid-late 70s. But George Lucas, nevertheless, was groundbreaking in the way that he applied technology and new techniques to actually tell that story.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's always the proof is in the pudding. If they could do it back in the, I tell you what, I saw they've remade Nosferatu. Okay, the vampire movie.
Yes.
Apparently,
okay.
And that made me think of the original Nosferatu, which is a pretty horrible movie. I mean, it's a great movie as far as the movie is concerned, but yeah, it's pretty bone chilling. But it made me think about how basic filmmaking technology was back then, because that movie, I think it's from the early 1930s or something like that. It's very, very old by modern standards.
Yes.
And yet the story was unbelievably compelling.
Yes. something that just came into my mind. For sure, you've seen The Silence of the Lambs with Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins. The last scene is where he walks away, and the camera will be lifted up higher, and you will see him walking away, like more or less into freedom, and to eat some more delicious liver. But that whole camera lift is shaking. If you focus on it, is shaking terribly. But because the story is so good, it doesn't matter. In this moment, it doesn't matter. You get the picture, you get the idea of what the director and what the team wanted to achieve. It's not about that it's shaking when it's lifted up, because back then it was in the 90s. They didn't have a proper way of lifting that up. Everything is shaking a little bit, but it's not important. And I think we maybe should focus more on this kind of filmmaking when it comes to, no matter when it comes to commercials or to feature films. Everything is so smooth now and like perfect with cinema robots and so on. But what is the story of all of this? And yeah, where does it touch you emotionally? I think that's a much more important part than all those fancy possibilities these days.
Do you think that's generally a problem with like things like, CGI and the way that we can, and now AI driven, digital effects that allow you to realize just about anything that comes to your head creatively, like in a split second? I'm obviously paraphrasing, but does that mean that maybe we're not really thinking hard enough about what the story is, because we have all of these technologies at our fingertips that make the realization of visual images so easy? I'm talking about in filmmaking, of course. We're talking about CGI. In photography, it's AI driven, generative fill and all that kind of stuff that we can do in Photoshop and so on. Do you think we're so sort of enticed by these technologies that we're just not thinking creatively enough?
I think besides the big names in the industry, I mean, when it comes to filmmaking, I think they've become a bit lazy. Because back then, and even today, if you want to make it realistic, you need a lot to make it realistic. I mean, if you want to film an explosion, you need to film this explosion in front of green screen, but you need to make it real. Like really, there must be something that causes an explosion, some material, and there will be a burst, and then you can film that. Or you need to make a model of it, film it in super slow motion, and this model will explode behind the green screen, and then you will morph that into the film. And back then they did it like this, like in the 90s, early 90s, late 90s. They did it like that, even 80s. I mean, for example, Die Hard Part 2. All of these things. There was a film, I forget the name, with a terrible volcano explosion, and then you can see the lava crawling through the streets. All of this is models. This is 1:10 scale, and then they filmed it like this, but they used dust and they used some natural effects, in camera effects. But at least those actors, they were really on set. They were there was something going on to the left and to the right. If you see now, I mean, I will just take out Marvel as an example, because most of that is filmed in front of a green screen, and then there are actors jumping around, imagining something. But I believe that there was a reason for Christopher Nolan, for Interstellar, using a real projected backdrop of the Earth and the universe when he put Matthew McConaughey into this lander, I forget the name of it, but into this spaceship, to have him maneuver, really hanging him into the air and shaking him and so on and so on. It is real. It feels more real. and the actor and the actress, they can actually be more real. They don't need to pretend so much. They are not hanging in some Leonardo da Vinci like build up costume or machine, and then they are whirled around into the air, and the actor is like, all right, now I need to imagine there is a dinosaur and there is a spaceship and whatever, and now I'm almost dying. It's more realistic for the actor, for the actress, so they are able to give us a better storytelling, a better emotion, because for them, they also see it. Maybe they see some light, some camera, but overall there is some set. And if you dive into this topic, for example, most of the James Bond movies are shot on location, and they are super successful. Interstellar, shot on location, super successful. Many of those films, like for example, also Titanic, they build they build a ship. They build a model of the ship. They build a ship. They build a stage that can be flooded and everything. You don't need to imagine you're drowning. For God's sake, you are drowning right now, huh? So I think it is more expensive. Yes, it needs more time to prepare. It needs a lot more organization. But the result, in my opinion, is a lot more realistic.
You mentioned it's more expensive to build real life sets. Do you think this drive towards more and more artificial backgrounds, CGI and all that kind of stuff, is this solely based on financials? Is this just really a thing about, keeping the production costs as low as possible in order to maximize profits when it comes to film? Is that the main driver, or is there something else?
If you ask me this about Marvel, I would say yes, because that's what I believe. I mean, most of those movies are having a very basic storyline, and which is mostly similar to any other Romeo and Juliet base line. It's good and evil, and then we have some love, and that's it. But it's a super successful franchise because many young people want to watch it. This is like their heroes, and I believe it's only for the profit. It's only for the profit. I mean, if you think about Nolan, had to make his 3 Batman movies being successful, then only they let him film Inception. Because they didn't know, will it be successful or not? But they knew the Batman franchise is successful no matter what you do. As long as you take a good actor, you take a good actress and a good director and a good crew, it will be popular also at the box office. I mean, Nolan did something from this. I believe that not many directors who filmed Batman movie made possible, because it's like own unique kind of approach how he realized it. And even for me, I'm not very much into those kind of Superman, DC comic films, but of course I watched it. The Dark Knight and also Batman Begins and later the last one. Just really, really good work, in my opinion. But he had to do that in order to be able to film Inception. So the studio let him film Inception and give him enough money for that. So yes, it is about production cost, and it's about maximizing profit at the end.
So,
unfortunately.
What I always find really interesting is, like, when we're talking about these big budget movies, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in production budget. I remember when Jurassic Park first came out. This is how old I am. I'm aging myself right now. Like, I remember going to the cinema to watch Jurassic Park. The first one, not like Jurassic, whatever it's called now.
Not the 7th.
Yeah, not the 7th. Yeah, the original one. And I remember, at the time, it was mind blowing because nobody's ever seen anything like that. CGI. I mean, for the time, super realistic looking dinosaurs. When you watch it now, it's like, okay, But back then, it was mind blowing, right? But I also remember that at the time, it was the first movie ever to break the $100 million barrier or mark. So it was the most expensive movie made at a time. And I remember thinking like, wow, this is incredible. But then on the flip side of that, so actually, just to finish off that thought, so you have these movies on hundreds of millions of dollars of budget, where you have access to all these technologies, everything you can possibly think of to a degree. But on the other end of the spectrum, you have independent movies that are made on a shoestring, with no money or very little money. And actually, it's interesting. I had Jay Silverman on the show not too long ago. He was talking about his new movie called Camera, which is a beautiful movie, very, very well shot. The storyline it's all about the story in this.
Yes.
Really fantastic movie. I absolutely love it. I've seen it several times. And that was filmed on a shoestring. When I say shoestring, a few $1 million, and you go, wow, that's still a lot of money in my book, but obviously when it comes to making a movie, it's nothing,
Yes.
But I've remembered that, I started with video when I was a kid, mainly because my dad and my grandmother were photographers, and I wanted to go with the times. And so I got into video cameras, and I wanted to make movies, and that's what I made at home. I made like little movies. But you didn't have very much. You didn't have computers, as in like there was no such thing as Premiere Pro or anything like this. You couldn't edit on a computer. I had to edit by pressing play on the camcorder and record on the VCR. That's how I cut, right?
Wow.
And there was a thing. The dad of a friend of mine had a thing called a title generator, which you would basically plug in the middle of it, and you could program a little title, and it would like pop up, a very basic title. You had no creative variation. It gave you one computery font from the 80s, and that was it, right?
Yes.
But what that meant was you had to get super creative. You really had to stretch your brain to make things work, because there was nothing, there wasn't like special effects. I made all the special effects myself, with little like what you used to call in German, used to call like little fireworks things. I don't know what they call it in English. In German, we used to call them Böller, like little fireworks.
Explosives. Yeah.
Little like, just to blow stuff up and, film things. But that was the thing. So my question really is, do you think that because of the fact that the mainstream movie industry has gone like virtually so overboard with these immense production budgets and the access to all of the the technologies that money can buy, do you think that restricts people's, or maybe the director's creativity, because you're not really forced to stretch your creative brain because you have no limitations in how much money you can spend on stuff? Do you think that's a problem?
Yes and no. To me, yes and no. I think what is missing is that the director and the producer, the people who are making this movie possible, can do whatever they want. I mean, the big ones. They don't need to think about creative solutions like what we mentioned before about George Lucas. He needed to invent something to have it worked for his kind of movie, what he wanted to do. So he needed to invent things like back then, if not mistaken, was it Peter Jackson filming everything with IMAX, Lord of the Rings, but at the same time they were too loud, so he needed to also the scale, he needed to invent during production, invent a lot of things to make it work out within the movie, because otherwise that was not possible. And I believe this is missing a bit. If you can reproduce and produce everything either with CGI or with in-camera effects or with green screen in the back, and you don't really need to go on location and also find this unique location, I think this is also missing. When ideally the director of this movie has a film in his head already, in his or her head, before it's done, before production, before it's finished. And I would like to see this movie, actually. But then there are many options that can be done. And yeah, with this, I believe that there is a lack of solution searching. We can do everything, then we just do it. And it becomes kind of maybe boring, because there is no tough problem that needs to be solved. These days, everything is possible. You want to shoot underwater? No need the water. We can add that later in CGI. You want to shoot in space? No problem. We hang you on 3 cables and film in front of a green screen, and then you fight. And like the first Matrix movie, for example, they needed to solve problems. They had this slow motion effect. You know what I mean? The bullet time effect, where they set up 100 cameras that was around them, and at the same time those 100 cameras can't be seen. So there was a lot of work also in post-production for the guys editing that later. But it was invented with this movie. And then later on, they just shot in front of green screen, and they were fighting in the sky and whatever. It was becoming, in my opinion, too fancy. It was nice. The first movie was mind-blowing. And then the rest, what followed, was trying to get revenue from this name, have more people going to the movies. And I also watched it back then, all 3 parts. The last part I didn't watch until now, because I also don't want to spoil my memory. I have something like, the first one was so unique and was so new and was setting up, like putting my world upside down, giving me a lot of ethical questions and like philosophical questions that I had after this movie. Like, is it everything real? Where are we living? How is this? How is that? And that's, I think, what the movie should focus on. Again, it's a story. They invented all of this to tell a better story. And of course, it was mind-blowing back then. Nobody has seen that before. And that was for sure was one of the reasons why this movie was so successful. Because they had to find solutions for what they wanted to do. Now, with being everything possible, it's a bit boring. That's why there are easily, if you compare indie films with a low budget, a super low budget, they are much more interesting in terms of storytelling, more thrilling, more nice to watch than this $100 million production, Michael Bay blowing up every 2 seconds something. Of course, it's fun to watch, but you will forget it afterwards. That's what I believe. And I'm not doing that the people being entertained for 2 seconds and then, all right, that's it, go on. I wish they sit down for a moment longer and think about it. Think about what it means for them.
Hey, let me just jump in real quick to tell you about the amazing sponsor of this episode, Platypod. Platypod offers innovative camera support systems designed to unleash your creativity. With their stable, versatile, and portable solutions, you can capture stunning shots like never before. And I'm not just saying that. As the host of the Camera Shake podcast, I can personally vouch for Platypod's incredible products. They've become an integral part of the show. In fact, I'm surrounded by various Platypod products holding up lights, cameras, microphones, and so on. It's really helped to transform the way I make the show and the way I shoot at home, in the studio, and on location. But don't just take my word for it. Explore Platypod's website at www.platypod.com to discover their range of products, including the Platypod Extreme, Platypod tripod heads, and the brand new handle, of course. Make sure to follow Platypod on Instagram and Facebook at Platypod Tripods for exclusive updates, tips, and giveaways. By choosing Platypod, you're not only investing in your photography, but you're also supporting the Camera Shake Photography Podcast. Thanks again to Platypod, our amazing sponsor. Platypod, where innovation never sleeps. There's a scene in the Tom Cruise version of War of the Worlds, which is, the thing that I love is, I love the the use of CGI and special effects when they're so subtle that you can't really tell
Yes.
that it's happening. But the only way that you
Yes.
can realize that particular shot is with the use of CGI. There's one particular scene in Tom Cruise's version of Waterworld where they are fleeing in a car. So they managed to get a car working. They're on the highway trying to dodge, all the other cars that had basically broken down, or
Yeah.
and it's him and his kids in the car. And the camera move is unbelievable. The camera is basically, shows the car on the highway. It flies around the car, then it goes into the car, then it goes through the car, through into the car through one passenger window, and then out the car through another window. Goes back around the front of the car, over the car, back through, and it's a continuous shot.
Yeah.
And you watch that, and you think, and it's action, it's thrilling, it's like it's tense, and you can see what's
Yes.
happening on the outside, but also at the same time you can see what's going on, the panic inside the car,
Yeah.
and they're having a dialogue going on at the same time. But when you really sit back and you think about how the heck did they film that? There is
Yeah.
no way you can actually physically film that, because you can't have a camera flying like a drone, flying into, whilst the car is going at 50 miles an hour down the
Yeah.
highway. There's just no
Yes.
way you can do that. And that's always the thing. I think that's the thing. One of the things that fascinates me is that creativity because somebody must have been thinking, wouldn't it be cool if we could do that? And then it's like, but how are we actually going to realize that? And this is something where you have to be creative in order to tell that story, and this is where the technology serves the storytelling in the movie,
Yes.
rather than the other way
Yes.
around.
Yes.
I was going to ask you about, in the beginning you mentioned film school. Do you think there's an issue with how filmmaking is taught nowadays? Is that is that leading, potential, like the next generation of filmmakers, is that leading them
Well,
down that technology path, do you think?
Well, to be very honest, I've never been to film school, so I have no idea how they teach it.
Right.
I taught all of this. I learned all of this by myself. But what I experienced in my career is that I worked with a few people, with many people who have been to film school. And while the longer you are in the film industry, the more you realize film school is one thing, and real filmmaking life is a totally different thing. But I worked with one director who was basically green behind, how do you call that in English? Green behind the ears. I don't know how to, like, very fresh, like a freshman from film school. And she was good. She had good ideas. Everything is fine. But at the end, she told me, "Oh, for this scene, you have to have first AC and this person and that person, and you need another gaffer. We can't achieve it." And I was like, okay. But we are three people. I'm the producer and I do the camera, and I'm also here. I can do light. I can do a little bit here. We need to make it work out. Yeah, but how can we do this scene if we don't have enough people? Well, that's not film school, I told her, because we need to. Yeah, we have the manpower we have. We, like you mentioned before, on a shoestring. The budget was not there. We still need to achieve it. We still want to do this scene, right? We agreed on, all of us, we want to have this scene filmed like that. Then we need to make it work. Maybe it takes another day. All right. What can we do? And that's what I think is what they should teach maybe more in film schools, if I even may say that, because like I told you, I've never been there. But the practical approach is a lot more important than what is your title and what is written on your resume and whatever. It doesn't matter. Can you do it or not? Are you able to work in extreme conditions or not? Are you a creative person and you want to achieve this kind of special, like impossible shot? Yeah, then let's do that. I'm up for it. let's try our best to make it work out, and not tell me what is not working.
That's always the thing. I mean, it's exactly the same thing in stills photography. You know, if you want to get a shot together, you know, I always call it MacGyvering. You MacGyver yourself out of any problem. You know,
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you need a way to. I don't know. You need something as a reflector. You don't have a reflector. Well, let's see what else we got. Like, you know, we could use whatever.
What can we use?
Yeah, somebody wear a white T-shirt, stand over there. You know, whatever it takes. You know, but that's always the thing. It's that creative problem solving, which I actually love. I love that about the process. This is part of why I love photography. You know, and filmmaking is just because of that. And I always feel like, you know, in a world where you can just press a button on a computer, and that solves your problem for you. I mean, sometimes that's a great thing. But you know, for the most part, I don't know. I always think of creativity as a muscle that needs to be trained and exercised, you know, like any other muscle. And I think that if you don't necessarily do that all the time, then that could have repercussions. I want to talk to you about advertising, because we've been talking about films here, sort of what they call long form video nowadays.
Yeah.
Advertising is quite a different kettle of fish, where we create something that is maybe only 60 seconds long, if even, right? It could be less than that.
Yes.
You know, and I think the misconception often is that, you know, when we're making an advert about a particular product, is that we're simply showcasing that product. But there's a lot more to it, especially when it comes to the storytelling aspects. In what way is the storytelling different in a short form advert compared to a long form 90-minute movie?
Basically, it's that you are jumping right into the story. There is no introduction. You don't present like in a feature film, 90 minutes film. You present your character. Even though you jump right into a story, you can do that in feature films as well, and that's interesting. But still, you have some time to have a character develop and show this character where he or she is coming from, where they are going to, what is the mission, what is their story, what is their ideology, what do they believe in, what is their values, their moral, are they the good guy or the bad guy? You will know that. You will know that because they show it. In commercial advertising, you have maybe 30 seconds, and you need to tell a story that hits here as good as is it possible. And that's why usually you will just jump right in. That's maybe the biggest difference for me. Also, everything is faster. Yeah, the pace is a different pace. I mean, these days when I'm doing commercials, it also depends. My clients usually need, if they say they need a commercial, it's not just a commercial. It's a project. They need 30 seconds for TV. They need basically 4 seconds for YouTube until the people can press away, you know, or 12 seconds or 15 seconds until the people need to watch the whole thing. But then the story needs to come through already. So it's a mix, and then the whole 2 or 3 minutes film can be on the website or in social media. That's no problem, because the people click already, they go there, then they maybe want to watch the whole story, what it is about. I think it's the pace. It's a different pace. You need to, that the hook, yeah, the online marketing people always talk about the hook, but it's true. It must hit the people like a punch in the face, where they are like, oh, that's interesting. I want to watch. And they forget to click after 4 seconds, YouTube. They forget to click away because they are interested. They want to see, okay, what product they are advertising here? What is this about? Yeah, so it's different. And sorry, let me say something else. Because of the possibilities of online marketing these days and the targeted approach, like you are interested into your wife is pregnant, and now you're looking for baby shoes, and you Google that, you will see only this in online advertising. This one will be shown to you before you watch another video of something else. This one will be the commercial. So of course you are interested because that's your topic now. So this kind of change in behavior, change in targeted commercials also change the market a lot, because what you are, I mean, back then, 10 years ago, it was still a bit different. It was more a wider approach. You had a target group that is 14 to 49 or 17 to 49, and you need to hit that with some emotion. Now, your watch commercial applies to 99% men, and this is also the target group who will be seeing this. So it is also a change there. But to finish this is, to me, is jumping right into the action and the pace. The pace of the edits is 2, 3, 4 seconds, cut. 2, 3, 4 seconds, cut. Another scene, another angle, another part of the storytelling. Yeah, that's...
I think that's actually is a super interesting point. You mentioned the way that the way the storytelling aspects have changed, over time in advertising, and of course,
yeah,
to a degree, adverts are shown on different platforms now than they were 20 years ago. 20 years ago, before the event of social media and the and YouTube and all the rest of it, commercials mainly ran on TV. And your target audience, like you mentioned, may have been a lot wider, because there would have been a wider group of people watching this particular program at 8 p.m. in the evening or something on this particular channel. Yeah. But of course, now everything's so much more fragmented, and so you can, from a marketing perspective, target things or people, groups of people, much more specifically.
Yes.
And what's super interesting is the fact that you mentioned that, of course, you've got to think as a filmmaker, if you're creating an advert, you literally have to think on these different levels, like on this sort of a multi-layered approach, where you got to think, okay, I'm going to shoot something that works as a 3-minute short film commercial, but it also has to work as a 4-second thing. It also has to work as a 15-second thing. And so you're constantly having to think like, okay, well, how can I, have to, first of all, come up with the storyline, but also have to be able to break that down so that I can create these shorter snippets. That's quite a change from the way that advertising would have been viewed solely for TV 20 years ago.
Absolutely. And the thing is, also the target group differs. Even though you have, let's say, okay, these days I have a lot of hi-fi, high-end clients. We're talking about companies that sits above companies like Bose or JBL. They are really luxury, hi-fi companies producing receivers starting $10,000 or $20,000. So we market them in a different way, because this is nothing that they will watch on TV. They are not watching TV mostly. People who can afford these kind of pricey gadgets seriously, nobody needs that, but it's nice to have. They are working. They are businessmen, businesswomen. They are working all the time. So what they might see is a feed in their social media, like Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn a lot, and as well as YouTube, where they sometimes maybe just relax. Or Amazon Prime, if they don't have the paid version, they just watch something, what they want to watch in the evening, and then that's it. So that's where the target audience sits. But even people on TikTok who are interested into this, they are way younger than people who are on Facebook watching this and who are on Instagram watching this. Like, Instagram is now my age. I'm 38, and maybe I started with Instagram a bit late, but the young people, they are on TikTok, they are on Twitch, and I don't know what. Sorry for this. Snapchat. Yeah, I don't know. But I don't even have an account there. But yeah, they are there, and it's you still need to know as a filmmaker, and also for my clients, I still need to know about it to target those kind of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 second clips to the specific platform and to the specific target group. At TikTok, maybe not maybe, those companies, they advertise as well, but they advertise for products who are cheaper, that are entry-level products, while their own social media, this is the real deal. Facebook, that's the real deal. They show this setup is $80,000. Like that, yeah, like Macintosh, for example. Macintosh from the US is also one of the clients. It's a different target group. It's a different approach to advertise this. For example, Macintosh, those devices look very technical, very manly. So what you are showing, no women will buy that. If they buy it, then only because the husband asking for that for 10 years and she's like, all right, whatever, you do that in your music room and leave me alone. Yeah. It's really like that. It looks very manly. So you need to show the technical details of this, how nice it is and how sturdy it is, and like very manly. Yeah? On the contrary, if you have a brand like Bang & Olufsen, which is also a client of mine, half of the customers are women. And the couple usually buying things together because it's like a statue for their living room. And you can choose which kind of wood you want to furnish that. And you can choose from everything, whatever you want. And this is interesting because, of course, your target group is totally different. It's not enough to show a fancy-looking device with some smoke coming up, and another, and then next to a Porsche, there you go, done, sold. You have a totally different approach. This home must be looking like a home. This loudspeaker needs to fit in perfectly, and it needs to create a warm atmosphere. Then the lady will say, honey, we need to buy this.
Yeah, this is the thing where you need to see yourself in that particular scenario.
Yes.
If you can project yourself into it and you can I like
absolutely.
that.
Man doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. Show me a fancy thing. Give me the specs.
Yes.
Let's go.
Yes.
It's actually, it's
Tell me
interesting.
about the specs. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I had an interesting conversation with Schuh microphones. Probably a couple of years ago. And I remember we're talking about generally about, they were very interested in podcasting as such, and and I remember saying to them at the time that I was surprised. I mean, I spent 25 years in the music industry, and I've used Shure products for decades and decades and decades, ever since I was like 5 or whatever.
Very
Shure
good
microphone.
company.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody uses Shure mics at some point, right? But I remember saying to them I'm really surprised that in the YouTube market, in the content creator market, you have companies like Rode, for instance, who bring out products like little lapel mics that you can clip on, that record, and all that stuff. It's super useful little tools that allow you to create that content. And there was nothing. Sure had nothing on the market, and it seemed to completely ignore the market. And so, you turn on YouTube and everybody's like talking about Rode microphones, left, right, and center. And I just wondered why that was, just out of interest, because I thought Shure is such an old, well-known microphone brand that I was just simply surprised to see that they weren't on that platform at all, right? And it was interesting because back then, I remember the answer was, well, we're like a high-end company. We're not interested in that market. And I remember thinking, oh, I think that's a mistake. Like that market, the content creation market, is huge, and it's only growing. And of course now they have microphones like the Move mic here, the lapel mic, things that I brought out. And now they are playing in that market. But it was interesting to me to see how late they were to the party. And of course, as a photographer, that reminds me of Kodak, eh, you know, and things like that.
Yeah.
And Akbar, where are they? You know,
Yeah.
and I think that's kind of dangerous. Now, when you work with clients, like you mentioned, Bang& Olufsen, for example, no, how do you balance um, the brand's vision with your own creative vision for a product like that? How do you find the right balance there?
That can be pretty tough, to be honest. Because okay, let me start from the beginning. Most of those companies have a huge marketing department. So usually I'm not coming through the marketing department, but through connections from CEOs and or CFOs, CMOs. So they are like knowing me or seeing my work for other companies, and they are like, hey guys, you should work with him. Give him a call. So they have to do that. So they don't like me, first of all. So I need to try my best to pull them towards me. And mostly that works with just having a lot of meetings together and sitting down, either flying there, meeting the people in person, which helps a great deal, to be honest. Or, okay, if there is no other choice, like for example, the Technics boss is sitting in Japan. You're not just for a meeting going there. You do that online, you do that via Zoom. But have many calls and give. Yeah, what I do is I give my ideas to them and let that sink in. I always tell, okay, let me give you some example of what we can do. Basically, 3 different ways of doing something, guiding a project, leading a project. And then mostly they will pick one that they like the most. Yeah, same or similar with offers. Yeah, if you hear somebody like who is regularly selling, not like what I sell, but like products. Yeah, you give them a cheap product, you give them a medium price product, and a very expensive product. They will choose the middle. They don't want to look cheap. Expensive is too expensive, so they choose the middle. And this kind of approach is actually working with stories, with ideas as well. You give them 3 options and then they will choose one. And of course, I need to develop these 3 options. I need to think about, I need to invent that, let's say. And I will present it to them, and then I think 99% decide for one of it. Sometimes even 2. They will say, oh, we like those both. Can we do that both? Sure, no problem. I don't mind more work. Yeah, so yeah, and that's how we start. But what I believe is you really need to, yeah, like be close with the people in charge, because otherwise they will work against you. I mean, I'm always the outsider. I'm external. I'm not part of the company, not part of the philosophy, what they believe in, and so on. I just see it from another perspective, which is also helping them. That's actually why they hire me, because mostly they are too much into their own thoughts, into their own thinkings, and then they might not, target the right people. Same like what you mentioned before with Schuh, that they were watching Road, like basically entering the market and taking away their customers in the low price segment without any resistance. And so, yeah, maybe if they would have listened to people like you, they would be number one now when it comes to clip-on mix with a
Okay.
wireless system. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's
yeah,
interesting.
basically, yeah, with big companies, it's like this. You need to win the marketing department on your side. Smaller companies, more manufacturers, like really small companies, 40, 50 employees. maybe they only have like one example is Gold Note. They are close, sitting in Tuscany. No, in the Tuscany area, close to Florence in Italy. Beautiful area, very nice company, all made by hand, all like invented everything by themselves. Nothing made in China or what. Pricey, of course, but worth it. They have one person in the marketing department. Pretty easy. Shaking hands, agree on things. There, let's work together. Let's make the best for the company. So it depends with this.
Yeah.
It depends.
Yeah, I mean, I've had some, had some good experience with some Chinese companies actually. Interestingly enough, because sometimes what happens is, a company might enter into a particular market, but they might look at, at existing products and might go like, well, actually, there are some issues with those. What can we do to sort of improve this?
Yes.
Um, I'm thinking Holy Land is really cool for that. I've just tried out their new,
Hmm.
wireless lapel mics, and I really like them. They sound great. They actually do sound really good.
Yeah.
And it's quite an easy system to use,
Yes.
in a
Plug
sense.
and play.
But
Yeah.
the interesting thing about that was, I ended up in a like hour-long Zoom call with them where they were like really going into like, how I used them, my workflow. It was like very, very detailed. And I thought that's actually pretty cool. They're really interested in how people use their products down to that granular level where, yeah, okay, we'll hop on a Zoom call with you for an hour and we're going to talk through every little detail. And quite a few times during the conversation, went, oh, we didn't realize you do that, you know? And so I find that interesting. That's the sort of thing where, you can think, well, actually, they're interested in improving the product, which makes my life easier in the long run. Um, how do you handle like creative challenges? Especially let's say when you're on a project and it's not necessarily unfolding the way that you thought it would. How do you deal with those kind of creative challenges, especially when you have a client breathing down your neck?
With this, I believe in brutal honesty. You don't need to cover up a dead body. If this is not working, if this way I proposed it to my client, it's not working that way. Stop wasting their time, their money, and my time as well, and just sit together and talk about it. And I believe that's also the only approach that works, because at the end I've seen too many commercials and too many advertising that doesn't work. You watch it and you are the target group. Actually, it applies to you because maybe you even want to buy a product from them, and you see this film and you think like, what the hell were they thinking? What to why you do it like this? It doesn't make any sense. Where's the in? What do I do? What am I not understanding here? Yeah, sometimes I feel like this, and I believe there is a lot of bad advertising outside, a lot. But yeah, maybe if the person who is in charge tells, oh, we made the best product, and the company believes, oh, we made the best advertising. Okay, there you go. Try it. It won't work, but try it. I believe brutal honesty is the only way to make it work out. At the end, your client maybe is not satisfied with the outcome, but you did your best. For me, I did my best as a filmmaker. I did my best to keep him updated on the process, and then the client still can decide, okay, thank you. We want to go on trying something else with you. Can you think about some other idea? Or they take somebody else, another filmmaker. But in my experience, the first happens a lot more often. Actually, when I had an issue and I was talking about it, we found a solution for this issue with the client. I never had a client walk away and saying, you suck. Like this.
What's
It
your
never
process
happened.
when you take on a project? What's your process? Do you go like, how do you get started? You start with an ideation process, or what's your sort of process from you get a call, somebody says, or get this new, I don't know, stereo system or something.
Yeah.
Go. What's your first step?
Okay, first step is bring all the people who are in charge and who are deciding. That's very important. People who are deciding, bring them together. And then I will just ask questions. This first meeting, mostly 60 to 90 minutes, is me asking them questions. And the better I know what they want, the better I can make it work out for them. I also had meetings where I realized they don't know what they want. I'm not taking that call. If the client don't know what they want, okay, let's say like that. Like they didn't know the outcome. They didn't know the target group. They said, I'm asking, okay, for who is this video? Who is your dream audience? Yeah, everyone. We want everyone to buy this product. Okay, grow up. It's not going to happen. You need to tell me, especially with advertising, who is this product for? Who is your ideal customer? So I can customize the storyline, the project, the video as good as possible to this dream customer. But I need to know about it, about the customer. How much is he or she earning? What are the fears? What are the dreams? Where do they go for vacation? What car they are driving? Ideally, I have a persona that I can tailor this project to. That doesn't always work because I also have smaller companies, like more that have there are companies that produce 10 or 20 devices per year for a lot of money. So they have a different approach. Also, the target group is different to them. There you need to go a little bit in a different way. But the first thing I do is always asking questions. And especially if the marketing department have some ideas already, please let me know. And what do you think about these ideas? Which one do you prefer? Is this something you want me to work on? Or do you want me to find another new way? What do you want? That's the most important question, I think.
So looking back, over the last sort of decades and a half or something, how has your approach changed? As the world of media has changed around us, or has it changed at all?
It has changed. I have at the beginning of my career, I have taken clients that didn't know what they wanted, and it was a mess. Now I'm not doing that anymore. I don't think the work with clients changed that much. Just what changed is that what we talked about before. We need a version 4 seconds. We need a version 15 seconds. We need a version 30 seconds, 1 minute, and the long version for the website. If somebody clicks there, they want to watch the whole movie, sure, go ahead. But it changed. The customers, they ask more for a hook to keep the audience hooked. They will even, some of them, not all, but they will even ask me, what can we do that the target group stays on this video and don't click it away? I mean, either close the window or click somewhere else. What can we do? So this is actually a crucial step at the beginning, in my opinion, to find a good hook that also fits. I mean, the best hook is a hook that you don't realize it's a hook. Yeah. So it's and with this target group of, let's be honest, rich people that I have a lot in the last years, the target group is different and the hook is different. The time we have is different. They are willing to watch further than the kids who just click away, want to see their video. It's different. It's really different.
So, in what way do you have to specify the storytelling aspect of it, depending on the target group? Like, let's say if you're shooting something for the TikTok generation, In what way is that different from, let's say, when you're creating something for Bang & Olufsen's target audience, who are presumably not going to be spending that much time on TikTok, I will guess. Maybe I'm wrong.
Not really. And if then just because they follow some creators or some friends. Okay, how honest can I be here on this podcast?
100%. Totally.
Okay. These days is really the younger you go with target group, the more stupid it must be. Yeah. If you have a hook, I mean, basically those viral hooks, they work where something is destroyed, some stupid situation is happening, some silly situation is happening. I mean, you can create that, and it's possible to create that, or you just start with a car chase that doesn't make any sense, and then you end with a product like this. But this is not what I like to do with clients, high ticket clients like Bang & Olufsen, Bose & Wilkins, Focal, and Name Audio that I have. It's a different approach. For example, a few years ago, we did a name for Bentley. I don't know if you heard about Name Audio, but if you believe that your Bentley doesn't have a good sound system in it comes with, you can choose to add it up and spend another, I think, $30,000 for the sound system only, and then you will get Name Audio. Name Audio is from UK, is huge. With audio files, they love it, and honestly, it's quite nice, really. So when we did that, the question was, how can we blend from Bentley, which is a car brand, to the music and this kind of how to say, all-in-one devices that the people will stand somewhere in the living room and just listen to. That is a loudspeaker, is a streamer, all in one. Like the name says, all in one, but not like your JBL box for $51.99 at Walmart, but more like the real deal, let's say, like that. And this approach, that wasn't that easy, and we needed some time to develop a good story and a good like storytelling to make it work. We used a lot of lights. We used Bentley as well, of course, Bentley cars driving over the bridge, but blending this over, because the Bentley customer maybe don't know about Name, and the Name customer doesn't drive a Bentley. So they know Bentley, but yeah. So to mix this was a bit tricky. But this was very successful. But at the same time, there was not really a short version of it, because the company said, we don't need that. If they want to watch that, they watch that. And that can also be an approach to say, like, okay, if you've seen the first 4 or 5 seconds and you're not hooked with this, what you see a car driving there on a beautiful road over a bridge which is like 300 meters below this is forest and really nice. Okay, you don't like that, then you're not our customer. Like this. Yeah. And I quite like this approach from the company, from my client, because I was able to focus on the main thing. I didn't need it to think about, okay, now we need to add something into the movie, let's say, artificially, that it will fit in, it will blend in, but not that good as if you just tell a story from the beginning until the end. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I totally agree with the being sort of assertive as to what your target customer actually is, because it's a very typical, common thing in just about any industry, especially in the beginning. If you set yourself up as a photographer or a filmmaker, to think that everybody's your customer, and it couldn't be further from the truth. What's the biggest lesson you've learned from working with major brands like that? What's sort of the biggest takeaway?
Maybe really about communication. What I'm thinking about now is if there was something not working out, it was not because there was a mistake, but mostly because the ego of the person in charge was not satisfied enough. And that's what I've learned maybe in this big company or company work, that you have to pamper a lot of people and you need to make them happy in one way or another. They need to agree with you. You need them on your side. And if it helps to have a call with them for half an hour and explain them every single step, and then after that they feel like, oh yes, good, even though they don't do anything on this process, they just want to know, but they are the ones who decide. Yeah, then you have to do that. Maybe is when I look back, it's really about communication is the key. Really, communication, and you need to make them like you. If they can laugh about you, they will not kill you.
I want to rewind a little bit and talk about your sort of origins in filmmaking. What was the thing that drew you originally to filmmaking?
Interesting story. Okay. After school, I went on directly to work in the field of insurance. I was an insurance broker, and my sales were good. Everything was fine. Then I started building up companies with a business partner, coaching companies. And it was not running very well because also the business partner's wife passed away due to cancer, which was a tough time. So I've been at the brink. I think it's called to decide where I want to go. Back then when I started doing the coaching stuff, health coaching, crisis coaching, like financial advice and those kind of things, I needed to decide. Yeah, I know. Back then, I decided I never want to do real insurance again because I didn't. It didn't make me happy. It didn't fulfill me. It was nice. I earned not so less money. Everything was fine, but it didn't fulfill me in my heart. So I was like kind of searching for that. I mean, that's also now, yeah, like 12 years ago, 11, 12 years ago, I wasn't happy. So after the wife passed away and my business partner didn't focus at all on the business anymore, I was there to decide what should I do. Should I go back and sell insurances, mostly health insurance, what I did, private health insurance, or what? I was really asking myself like that, what should I do? And I remember there was one day I was sitting there and I reminded myself, I don't know why this picture appeared in my brain, in my memory, but I've seen myself when I was a little kid playing with Lego bricks. And but instead of, I mean, everyone was playing with Lego bricks when they were young, I guess. But I didn't build fire stations and police stations and hospitals. I was actually building TV sets and TV studios when I was young already. I was super interested into this. I was watching a lot of TV and a lot of these kind of talk shows. I think the most popular in the US is Oprah and Jerry Springer back then. Jerry Springer. I'm not sure if it's the right name, but
It's
something
Jerry
like
Springer,
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you watch closely, and I recorded that on my VHS, and then I replayed that, and you've seen from some camera angles, you've seen, oh, there were cameras, the big ones, hiding in the back where it's dark. There was like some gap in the background so they can film out from there. And I was like rebuilding that. That was my kind of thing. And then later on, when I was still young, I thought, I watched trailers of news shows and this and that, and also, and I write down what I would change and this and that. And back then, this came into my memory again. Suddenly, like the universe opened its gates, like kind of, huh? And I was like, okay, no way. You can't be a filmmaker. You are a insurance broker. You are focused on coaching now and this and that. You can't be. But it didn't let me lose anymore. I that was like implanted into my brain after I recalled this memory. And it took me 4 weeks to decide. 4 weeks later, I decided to build a green screen studio, small one, because back then everyone was doing virtual studios, like those kind of online courses. And so I thought, okay, I don't need much space. I have a 50 square meter room. Let's just build a green screen studio. I did that with a friend, bought all the audio foam and this and that equipment and so on. And then I started. And then 1 month later, I was introduced to a business partner, from a business partner to another guy. And this guy was looking for a filmmaker to film the background of the first Mallorca Open. Mallorca is a small island in Spain, very popular island. The rich people go there a lot. And the Mallorca Open was set up by the WTA, the Women's Tennis Association. And that was the last grass tennis tournament before Wimbledon. So the whole top 20 of the world women tennis player were there, including me. So my job was to film the background, like some kind of event movie, you will say, because the WTA, they bring their own camera people for filming the tournament, all good. But the atmosphere, the scenery, that was my job. And that was my first paid, more or less, not the first one, but big paid client. And I did that for them for the whole 3 years they were in Mallorca and did the Mallorca Open. After that, no more. But they were happy with me, obviously, and I did something right. And that's how this career started, how my filmmaking career started. And before I did something for money, I wanted to earn money. I wanted to sustain myself and drive a nice car and have a nice house and this and that. And that's all nice. I don't regret anything of that. But it was also kind of learning to understand, okay, this is maybe not the last job in your life, let's say like that. Yeah. But when I started filmmaking, I really understood what it means to love what you're doing. Because that one, still until now, I can spend hours in one room setting up a scene. I just love it. I just like to do that. Yeah. And even though sometimes working with big teams and it's different, but I believe, because I also learned that all of that by myself, I believe you need to, as a filmmaker, you need to know how to light, how to do sound, how to use a camera. Then only you can direct and orchestrate a big team. Otherwise, if you don't know about this topic and you don't know about that topic, it's like you're blind in your own atmosphere. So, and I loved to learn that back then, and I still learn now every day with what I'm doing, and I just like it.
Were there any particular, movies or directors, or let's say some moments in, cinematic history that sort of influenced your storytelling style?
Yes, of course, of course. For sure, Christopher Nolan, because I watched back then already. Memento was, I think, the first movie that I watched.
It's a great movie.
But and the way he's telling this story, so confusing and then so good.
Yeah.
Yes. Maybe not the first approach of doing it, but what a brilliant result. So this him definitely. Steven Spielberg, of course. I also watched Jurassic Park and I was blown away. I was young back then. How that '93, if not mistaken. And I was not even 10. I was 7, and I think I watched it with few years later, with 9 or with 10, and I was super scared. But still, I love to watch it. Let me think. What other directors? What's his name? Kill Bill.
Quentin Tarantino.
Quentin Tarantino. Yes, Quentin Tarantino. I watched all his films, and not only one time. I also like to rewatch a lot. Yeah, I don't know why, but I just love to do that. And every time I rewatch some movie, I will find something new that I wasn't aware of before. And even if it's about my life, my work, like, oh, I see something that now I know how they did that, something like that. Wes Anderson, amazing. He's a very his storytelling is super strange in many ways. The last one, Asteroid City, I think the last one was Asteroid City, but I just love it. Have you watched it? Have you had the chance to watch it?
No, I haven't seen Asteroid City yet. This is definitely on my list. Yes, I was actually talking to my wife about this the other day. Yeah.
I'm not telling anything, but all I can say is you definitely should watch it. It's so kind of quirky and crazy storyline, but you just have to love it. If you like Wes Anderson, you will also love it. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I think so far. I mean, I watched Apocalypse Now and all the movies from him, Francis Ford Coppola. Yeah, also great director. Influence is always a bit difficult because I'm sure I'm influenced by a lot, but maybe I don't even recognize it, because for me this is kind of good storytelling. It's part of good storytelling, and maybe I don't even know from who I borrow that style.
Yeah, that's always the thing. It's in music, I used to describe it. I used to teach music for a long time, and one of the things I used to say to students very often was that when you're, as a guitarist, for example, when you grow up learning how to play the guitar, you copy a lot of things, and you learn, especially as a guitarist, you learn solos, you learn guitar solos, and you might learn, a Slash solo, you might learn a little, bits of Van Halen solos, you might learn a part of a George Benson solo, and
Yes.
whoever, and you do that for long enough, and what happens is it's like you throw all these things into a big pot. And over time, the end result will be the uniqueness that's you, so you're a result of your influences, over time. This is exactly the same thing, same thing in photography and filmmaking. And the thing, one of the reasons why, actually, it's one of the reasons why on this podcast, I like to combine the two. Of course, we talk a lot about still photography, but I also like to talk about, filmmaking and videography. It's because to me, it's kind of part of the same thing. It's a visual experience. Sometimes you look at a stills photo and it draws you in, and you can imagine that story behind it. So it's like, it's a two-dimensional thing, but it's sometimes, I look at a photo and it sucks me in.
Yes.
And it's sort of the horizon all of a sudden sort of expands, you can see, and it's your own creativity that kind of fills the rest. It's a bit like reading a book as opposed to watching a movie. You read a book, and your mind draws that whole story. It makes these images out of the words that are printed on a page. But the thing about filmmaking and movies is often that, they can trigger emotions so massively, on one hand. And also because you have the unique opportunity to tell story over time, as opposed to like one frame.
Yes.
You have that, as a director, I was thinking, you have that opportunity to play with your audience. You can throw them a curveball, and take something. It's whenever somebody says like, "Oh man, you got to watch this movie. The twist at the end is crazy. You'd never guess." And this is like, I always think like, "Oh, this is cool because." Yeah, and often there are movies with like very interesting twists where you double twists or even triple twists where you think you know what's going on and then you go, I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
there's a movie with it's a movie called Knowing, with what's his name? Francis Ford Coppola's nephew, Nicolas Cage. That's what it is. Nicolas Cage. There you go. So who once owned a castle apparently in Germany. Weirdly,
Oh, okay.
how and why, no idea. But that's probably why he went bankrupt a few times. Anyway, that's a different story. But so the thing about the movie Knowing is it starts real. The premise of it is actually really good, and then there's a weird alien curveball at the end, and you go, "That's weird." And it is a matter of whether you like it or not. And it's like a salt and pepper type of a thing. You go like, yeah. Or what was the other one? One of not the very latest Indiana Jones, but the one before that, where all of a sudden, the Crystal Skull, whatever.
Oh, I think I didn't even watch that.
Yeah, it starts okay. You kind of go, okay, well, it's interesting. His son and blah blah blah. Oh, but then all of a sudden at the end, it gets totally ridiculous, and then we're talking aliens and UFOs, and it's like, all right, you've lost me there. That was a step too far. Like, that twist was too much of a twist.
Yeah.
It's like a roller coaster, and I've just left the track.
Yes.
One
Yeah,
of those things.
true. But like you said, I believe this is a fine line for a director, for a script writer. This is a very thin line. You need to maneuver very well, because when you mentioned Knowing, I also remember that I've seen this movie. I've seen it one time, and I wasn't satisfied with the end. I don't remember why, but I just wasn't. It didn't feel right. It didn't feel whole or complete. And yeah, now when you mentioned that, I fully agree.
Yeah, because it was a mystery. In a sense, it was a mystery movie about these weird number combinations that and so on and so forth. And you kind of think like, oh well, this could be something, whatever the reason behind it is, and it turns out it's like freaking aliens again. And you go, oh really?
Yeah.
Okay,
All
well,
right.
screw that. That was too easy. That was too easy of an explanation for
Yes,
that.
true.
It was late. I mean, that's you talk about lazy directing. That's why I thought, okay, well, that was just lazy. That was just a lazy explanation. Because actually, you can come up with anything into any weirdness in a movie, and then in the end, just say, aliens. There you go. See ya.
Yeah.
Going on now.
But Kirsten, that's also a problem when it comes to big studios. Maybe that script of Knowing of this particular movie was amazing, was great, but the studio at the end said, we don't like the ending. You put something in with aliens.
Yeah, true.
Okay. And that's always the fine line you need to negotiate between the sharks from the company and the creativity part. Or maybe it also wasn't just a good script writing. I think we will never know.
Yeah, it's bizarre because it's really, to me, it's a movie in two parts. The first part's awesome, really clever, love it.
Yes,
It's really great idea.
Agree.
And then the end, you go, did somebody else write this end?
Just
like, what's
not
going
good.
on here? Like,
Yeah.
All right, before we close out, for aspiring filmmakers, what's the one piece of advice that you would give somebody? Let's put it this way. Let me just rephrase it. I'm going to cut this bit out. Let me just rephrase this. Before we close out, what would be, and this is really something for aspiring filmmakers, what would be the main, most important piece of advice you wish you would have been given at the beginning of your career?
That's a very good question. Because there was actually a lot I've learned on this journey, and the learning curve that you have in filmmaking, especially when you're not coming from this background, super steep. But maybe the most advice, because the best advice that I can give is maybe listen to your intuition. if there is, I mean, I do a lot of commercial advertising. If there is a client who you are not feeling good with for whatever reason, something feels fishy, listen to that. With me, it always came true. It always came true. I have clients I worked with one time and never again, but most of my clients I work with for many years. I still work with the first client from 2015. I still work with him. So it is really about, in my opinion, communication is one thing, but also do something that you don't feel good with. If you can't stand behind the product they are producing or behind the moral or the values they are showing online or wherever, then you don't do that. If you hate McDonald's, why would you do a commercial for them? If you don't believe that it's good food and nice food for the people, why would you want to help them sell more? Only for the money? Then you're not a filmmaker, in my opinion. Then you're a businessman. Okay, fair enough. But then don't call yourself a filmmaker. I think the biggest advice that I would give, is listen to your intuition. Listen to your tummy or wherever this intuition sits, screaming to you, don't.
Follow your heart.
Voice. Yeah, follow your heart. If you have a connection with your client, especially at the beginning, you won't have the aspiring filmmaker, the starter. They won't have the big companies usually. It's very rare to start like this. Only if you offer for free, maybe then they will do that. But if it's a normal person, you're doing some event for this person, or you're doing some image film, some brand movie for one person who is also a personal brand, and you start with these things, have a look at the connection between you. Is that person somebody you want to sit down together, have a chit chat, go out for food, relax, enjoy, consider this person maybe after a few times meeting as a friend, kind of friend? Or is this person really only a client, only a customer that pays well and that's it? Treat them accordingly, or maybe take a step back and say, okay, maybe this path I don't want to go down. Because what I learned, what I learned from this is, if you don't feel comfortable with this person, if you don't feel good at the beginning, it will always come down to have more and more issues on the way.
Fantastic. There you have it. Follow your heart in whatever you do. Christian, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for being our guest on the Camera Shake podcast.
Thank you so much, Kirsten. Thank you.
All right, folks, that's a wrap for today's episode. It was awesome having Christian on the show. But before we go, let me just recommend another episode that I think you like. Check out episode 231 with Ty Turner. I'm sure you love it. If you enjoy our content, consider supporting us on buymeacoffee.com/camerashake to help us keep bringing you amazing episodes every week. It really means the world to us. And for those of you listening on audio, did you know that there's a fully fleshed out video version over on YouTube in full Technicolor? Well, you should by now, because I keep mentioning it all the time. So you get to see all of our stunning photography, all of our guests' stunning photography in full color there. Just head over to YouTube, search for Camera Shake Podcast, and you can watch all of our past episodes on there. And if you're already there, be sure to drop us a comment, hit the like button, ring the bell, and share with your friends. Your engagement helps us reach more people across the globe. Thanks again for listening and watching. And remember, a new episode drops every Thursday, so make sure you mark that in your calendars. Until next time, keep shaking things up in the world of photography. See you next Thursday.